Students, today we are going to discuss about the very significant aspect of Raag Darbari, Shilashak, women, voices of women. And this is a complete audio class. Just you have to listen. Listen it again and again and note down the significant points. Shilashak Raag Darbari presents a satirical portrayal of rural India, exposing the entanglement of power, corruption and bureaucracy. The novel centers on Shivpalganj, a fictional village, to critique the dysfunctionality of social and political institutions post-independence. However, within this intrinsic web of social one of the most striking objects is the near complete absence of gender voice, particularly those of women. Although women are mentioned intermittently, they function more as peripheral figure or object of narrative utility rather than active agents or participants in the social discourse. This absence is not a mere oversight but an intentional narrative device that mirrors the erasure of women's agency in patriarchal system. The absence of female voices in Raag Darbari mirrors the systematic marginalization of women within the rural society. While women are present in the narrative as a wives, mother and objects of gossip, their roles are almost entirely limited to the private sphere. The social order depicts the Shivpalganj reflect a highly satisfied patriarchal society in which men dominate the public sphere, discourse, discussion and institutions of power. Even within the domestic sphere, women remain confined to traditional roles within no significant participation in family dynamics that shape the narrative's events. For example, Rupman, the son of Vedji, the powerful village leader, occasionally referred to his mother, but her presence is largely absent and symbolic. Confined to her role as a silent figure upholding familial order, women's labor, both emotional and physical, is implicitly acknowledged but remain invisible and unacknowledged. The narrative structure ensures that male voices of and experiences are privileged, reflecting the broader social reality when women contribute and either minimized or treated or is irrelevant to the public sphere. So these are the points which you just have to listen, and it's a kind of I'm reading out significant aspects that you have to listen. The novel is often lauded as its sharp wit, keen observations and unflinching portrayal of corruption, power dynamics and rural society. However, one notable and critical aspect of standout is that conspicuous absence and marginalization of gendered voice, particularly those of women. This absence is not merely as a gap of representation but reflects the structural and cultural marginalization of women in socio-political discourse of rural India. This essay delves into the significance of this absence and implications and how it mirrors larger societal reality depicted in the novel. Contextualizing gender in Raag Darbari, the setting of Raag Darbari is Shivpalganj, the fictional village representing the typical rural Indian landscape of 1960. The village is microcosm where power is concentrated in the lands of few male figures such as Vedji, Principal Sahib and Thanedar Sahib, and rest of the other power penetrated towards the hierarchical order for the lesser powerful man, but they are men. The corrupt patriarchs who manipulate the political and social system for their benefits. The narrative focuses heavily on the power dynamics and corruption that underpin the village's social and political life, but it doesn't so primarily through the lens of male character. The women in Raag Darbari is largely peripheral figures. They are either completely absent from the sense of political maneuvering and social scheming or are relegated to minors. Supportive roles. For instance, women appear briefly as a domestic figure such as Vedji's wife or other female villagers, but their presence is fleeting and their voices are silent. The focus remains firmly on the male character who dominate the public and political sphere of village. This absence of women perspective or active participation discourse their marginalization, not just in the novel but also reflect their actual position in rural Indian society during that period. The novel provides the declining values and deplorable state of post-independence India and that is Shipalganj, full of corruption, discrimination, ignorance, and education system in dire need of reformation. The small village Shipalganj embodies the condition of many Indian villages, and it's a kind of pan-India representation. It invokes forms of explosive humor central to the oral culture of Indian literary aesthetic in order to critique the political realities of the society it represents. The satire works effectively to make its readers think beyond the superficial understanding of democracy and governance. The story goes as nuanced understanding of the various ways village life operates and showcase the helplessness of the face and lens of the power. Shukla attempts to capture and portrays a microcosm of the notion through the small village of Shivpalganj, and indeed it reflects many familiar problems and shortcomings of the governance of its time. It's still extremely relevant now. Vediji takes advantage of every situation in his village for his purpose and is caricature of the typical type of power-hungry politician who not only deals with the issues and surface level, never do it at the core level. But while the book openly reveals these political issues under the disguise of satire, and underneath all the rubble and chaos, hidden in the plain sight is another important issue that plagued the nation: gender issues. While Shukla does not only open or write on this topic, his lack therefore can be considered reflective of the time the topic of gender was just taken into consideration in social and political issues. This was not just an artistic choice, but rather how things were likely. So it's a mere representation which is actually actual in the society. When one turns back in pages of history, it is undeniable that man and woman have never been equal, never treated the same. Women have always been undermined and taken advantage, and they have had to fight for their basic rights. Pre-independent India was a nightmare in terms of women's position. They were not only reduced to become mere properties of their father and husband, but also silenced and broadcast and broadest sense of the word. They have no voice and no identity. To be a woman was remain hidden and suffocating wall of domesticity, where the outside world remained completely alien to them. With the independence came as a greater hope for chance in all aspects of life. The question of women's places society, however, was still lingering up in the air. To say nothing improved would be an exaggeration. Women did start to have choices in certain things, but the development did not reach far and wide, and certainly did not grow fast. The cases of sexism in India is doubly serious and harmful because of the casteism. When a woman is from the low birth and low caste, she is considered as liability and added weight to the burden of the parents. Perhaps the most damaging element of all, especially in the case of India, is that patriarchy believed that there is no alternate and become the internalize that people have no choice but to openly accept and embrace the subjugation of women, and they practice even violence and harassment faced by the women are normal in the sense, and they are accepted. The novel focuses on the patriarchal representation in a small village, Shivpalganj, a male-dominated village that is under the thumb of Vadiji. Shilal Shukla, through the medium of satire, critique upon the double standard of reform that only reaches the town and cities. The village suffer at the same time. In the male-centric society of Shivpalganj, we come across none of the female character, and even if we do, she is subjected to the male gaze and objectification. There are zero and a few women characters in the novel, which makes us question the novel through the feminist perspective and understanding of the role of female in the post-independence India. Goyal writes in his essay, the dynamics of the domestic life and its functioning have made the situation of women deplorable. While one tries to locate the presence of women in the novel, one gets a rare example, and that too from the superficial reference which become the only entry and exit point of their allocation in the function of the novel. Here refer how women may present the backdrop but not outstage or written in the pages of the novel. The women which are present in the novel have no identity and neither any medium to create any form of identity, which seems a deliberate attempt to showcase pre-existence a view upon the women's society. There is a lack of corporal presence of women, and that is to say the novel doesn't have even a single female character that has come forward or be given any voice. The only human in the novel that has referred as given the firm identity is Bela, and she herself is a victim of objectification and of the self, which is also done through three men. She has been continuously referred as a woman of low moral only for the sake of being unmarried and for her looks. The identity of Bela phrases through the male gaze and make her seems like a lustful woman, when in reality this can't be questioned as her presence in the novel absolutely absent. Through Bela, we see how the women of Shivpalganj are merely lustful objects who are made for men's pleasure and otherwise their existence isn't acknowledged. The nomenclature of the woman folk in the novel is also worth noticing. As part of Bela, there is no woman in the novel that have been given an actual name or identity. Women in the novel are rather referred as bundle of objects or promiscuous epithets such as milkmaid of Shivpalganj. Women are identified by their physical features, which are also derived from the focus on the male section of the society. They focus away from women also make the acts of man in novel towards the woman and rather being understood in the crime. When Badri wrestler Ranganath, Shanichar and other go to the Mela, people were openly groping women claiming and to be in the name of people visiting the Mela. Lovingly laid hands on the shoulders of the several women, groped them to check size and shape of their breast, and all which were such detachment that they would think it was a man's bounden duty to do, while pushing this away through a crowd. The lack of awareness and normality of such heinous crime in the novel is also due to the lack of proper education provided to the student. There is no mention of any educated woman in the novel or any female population attending the Changamal Intermediate College. Women are even evaded from the fields of education as if a woman would only to be further burdened than they already are any educated woman in the novel. Where anything else under the disguise of democracy, Vadiji himself doesn't acknowledge the absence of women from the field of education, which only makes him more superficial than he is already. The only woman character that is understood to be even slightly educated, that is Bela, and only her knowledge is how she can read Hindi epics and the daughter of sub-inspector. This becomes the point of critique that women are not encouraged to get education and their identity will be just like homemaker or either absent totally. Corruption, ignorance, discrimination and politics are the parts of Shivpalganj. Embodies the spirit of every Indian village that is in dire need of reformation. However, the work notably omit a focused narrative on the condition faced by women in the post-independence India. One cannot dismiss the obvious lack of representation and absence of female voices in novel. While argument that could be made question, one must remember Shukla infection of Indian society, capturing its unravished reality. The non-representation of women aligned with the social context that is depicted in the novel, where women's role were. Thus, this absence highlights the broader marginalization of women in public sphere. Gillian Wright, in translation, writes, Shukla's Shivpalganj is also strangely devoid of women. When questioned about the Shukla, promptly pointed out that politics is still male-dominated field. While Shukla focus on the public sphere and choice is not to represent women become a deliberately narrative device, mirroring the limited visibility and participation of women in the public sphere of post-independence India. The novel thus presents a patriarchal society in rural India where the public sphere and politics are male dominated and women are denied in the role of any kind. Patriarchy remain a corrupt system and that affect the lives of women and marginalized gender, impacting various facts of their lives, whether overtly or subtly. An institutional phase patriarchy evaluates an individual worth based on events of their subservience. In post-independence India, gender discrimination and subjugation continue to be dominant paradigm, when women are often not considered to be autonomous individuals but were instead viewed as properties of their fathers and husbands.